All right, hi there everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. We're going to get started with our stream here. I'm Mr. Newell. I work down in the Steamworks at the Shaker campus. And today we're going to talk a little bit about astronomy. I've got some stuff set up here. I've got a telescope that we're going to look at for a second. And we'll talk about astronomy a little bit, and then we're going to make a super cool little project, super simple to make. But it's a thing that can help you kind of start to learn about stars and constellations that we see. And I think it's a super cool project. It's real easy to make. So today we'll make real quick during our video. We'll make one, but the supplies that I have for this one will let you make about 8 or 9 of them, so that you can learn a bunch of different star constellations. So one of the things I like about this project is that you get to learn about astronomy and stars. And that's one of my favorite hobbies. I have a telescope here that I like to go out and look at the stars and the moon with. It's a super cool thing to use, and it lets you start to see things that are millions of miles away from here at Earth. So next, let's look at kind of some slides that I've got here that we'll talk a little bit about astronomy and some of the things that you can do in the hobby of astronomy, and then we'll get started on our project. So if we pull up our slides here, so now we can see our slides here. We're talking about astronomy, and astronomy is a part of science which lets you really look at things up in space. The thing that's really cool about astronomy is that you can really start to study and observe things that are super far away. So one of the ways to do that, besides our naked eyes, is a telescope. And one of the things that's cool about a telescope is they can be really small or great, great big. And usually we think about telescopes as being something that we look through. So they have big lenses and things like that. Some telescopes study radio waves. Some telescopes study radiation. So there are lots of ways for telescopes to help us see things super, super far away. So some of those things that we might see might be the planets, nebulas, or stars in constellations. And so we're going to be talking about constellations a little bit today, and that's really what our project is about, are constellations. So one of the reasons why I like telescopes is, like I said, we can see those things that are super far away. This is actually a picture of the moon that I took through my telescope. So when we go out and look at the moon, it might look kind of small in the sky, but with a telescope we can really start to see things super, super close and see lots of detail. Now, one of the other things that we can use our telescopes to look at are things like stars. And one of the reasons why I like astronomy is we don't always have to use our telescopes. So right now, if you go outside about 7:30, so before it gets really dark even, if you look up in the western sky and you look kind of high, you can't miss it. You'll see Venus. It's super, super bright. Usually, it's the brightest thing in the sky. It might be the brightest thing until the moon comes out. When we get a full moon, then the moon will be brighter. But almost always Venus is the brightest thing in the sky. Super easy to find. So once it gets a little less cloudy and it's not snowing, you can go out, look in that western sky right before bedtime, and you'll see Venus. One other thing to think about if you're going out to look at stars is your night vision. So when you go out to look at things, your eyes have to get adjusted to the dark. So one of the things that astronomers will use are actually special lights that only have red light. because your eyes work better once they get used to that dark, and that red light won't goof up your night vision. So that's something to think about. If you're going to go out and watch the stars a lot, go outside and sit out there for about 5 minutes and let your eyes get used to that dark. So next we're going to talk about constellations, and that's really what our project is about today. So we're used to seeing pictures like this that are constellation charts. So long time ago, explorers and historians would make up stories about stars, and they would start to imagine pictures, how all of these stars were connected. The other thing that helped them do is it helped them find those stars again when they looked up in the sky. So once they had imagined these pictures, it started to make it way easier to find these things once they were looking up at the sky. So we're used to seeing constellations kind of like this picture, where we've drawn those pictures, and they're kind of little stick pictures that show us what these constellations look like. So that's kind of a quick thought about astronomy and some of the cool things that you can do, and constellations. And so our project that we're going to work on today is from a book that I like a lot called STEAM Kids. You can find that at steamkidsbooks.com. And the project that we're going to work on today is out of that book. It's full of all sorts of super cool projects that you can do right at home. So now I think we can start to get ready to work on our project. So I've got a bunch of tools and supplies right here that we're going to use. One of the things that we'll do here is we'll switch, and now you can start to see all of the things that I've got here. So I've got some cardboard tubes. If you don't have cardboard tubes, don't worry about that. You can just roll up a piece of paper, and that'll work just as well. I've got my scissors and a couple different kinds of tape here. We're going to use duct tape today. So one of the reasons why we're going to use this is it's hard for light to go through this tape. So if we use this invisible tape, it might not work as well. So we're going to use this duct tape today. We're going to use the invisible tape in a minute for a small part of our project. And I've got my little template sheet here. So in a second, we're going to cut these out. One thing that I didn't have in my supplies, but I found is kind of handy to use. In a minute, we're going to use a pin to punch some holes in a piece of paper. So if we have this is just a washcloth, just a little towel. And if we have that on our table, it makes it easy to poke holes through the paper right into our towel. So if you have a little washcloth or towel, you can use that. The other thing you'll need is I have right here a little pin. You can see it. And I've got a couple toothpicks that we're going to use. So we're going to use those in a minute to poke some holes. So if we have all of our supplies and you're ready to get started, then we can start to make a thing that's going to help us practice looking at our constellations. So these are paper towel tubes. You can have little shorter ones that are from maybe the toilet paper that you've got in your bathroom, but we're going to use these big paper towel tubes too. So these will work just fine. So we can use our scissors and we can cut this down. So there we've got a little bit shorter ones. The thing that's nice is one of these tubes will get you 3 of your little star constellation projectors here. So now that I've got my tube, we're going to take our paper here that had our star charts and the little descriptions, and we can cut one of those out. And then what we're going to do is we can chop off this little square piece. We're going to use that in a minute. So we're going to take this round piece and we're going to cut that out. And you don't have to be super neat with this. You can just cut right around there, because in a minute we're going to tape this down to the end of our cardboard tube. So there we go. I've cut that. We can get rid of our scraps here. We'll move this guy out of the way. So I've got my little circle, And I've got my tube. And now what I'm going to do is I need a long piece of duct tape. So one that's about 8 or 9 inches long. So here I've got this little piece. And we're going to set this down. This is a little tricky because, man, this tape is sticky. So we're going to set this down here, and I'm going to take my circle and put it on the sticky side. So this is not the sticky side. We're going to put it on the super sticky side. We're going to stick it on there just like that. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to poke some holes in it. So I've got my pin here, and everywhere there's one of these big dots in my constellation, I'm going to poke a hole in it. And you don't have to be super exact. And then once I have those holes poked in there, I'm going to use a toothpick because this is going to let me make my holes a little bit bigger. So we're just going to poke right in those same holes that we poked with the pin. This is nice because the pin lets us poke through the duct tape. It's pretty tough. The toothpick wouldn't have popped all the way through there. So now that I've got some holes poked in there, and you can turn it over to make sure that you can actually see the little holes here. So I know I've gone all the way through. I'm going to take my tube, and now what I'm going to do is line up that circle with the tube. So it's going to go right on there. So when we look down inside the tube, we should be able to see our stars down in there. So we're going to line that up, and then just take this extra tape. We're going to stick it right down the side of our tube, just like this. So now our circle should be stuck down to the end of our tube. Now the next thing that you want to do is make sure that all of this tape is stuck down around these edges. In a minute, this will be super important. So then if you want, you can take another piece of tape just to make it look a little neater if you want, or to seal up those edges. And we can put that tape all the way around here, just to make this look a little neater. And to seal, see how this little spot wants to pop up right here? I want to make sure that that gets taped down. All right, there, I've got my tape all around there. We can smooth those edges out there. And now what I have is the beginning of our star projector. So now the other thing that I found that works is if I take my toothpick again, and then I come back and I can poke these holes from the back side, and it starts to make them a little bit bigger. There we go. So that looks a little better. Then this little square piece that has our description, if we take that, this is where we're going to use our regular old tape. We can take these and tape this right on the side here. So now we know which one of our constellations we're looking at when we pick up our tube. Because from the outside, they kind of all look the same. But if I flip them over, here I've got my descriptions on there, so I know which one I'm looking at. So if I want to look at the Big Dipper, I can grab my tube that says the Big Dipper. So here's my Big Dipper constellation that I've made, and if I look in there, I can see the stars down in there, but that's not the cool way to do this. So one of the things that you can do once you've got your tube made is if you look through it, you'll see the light will come through and you can actually see the little stars. So don't go outside and look at the sun or anything to do this, but if you're just in your room and you got a lamp on, you'll see the little stars in there. So that's kind of cool. But here's the thing that I think is really kind of cool about these. So if you have a flashlight, I'm going to turn on my flashlight here. If we shine our flashlight through there, now you can see our stars are shining through the holes. So now if you take that like in your bedroom at night and you put a flashlight in there, you can shine the lights up on your ceiling. Or if you have other folks at your house, like your mom or dad or your brother or sister, and you want to do this all together, you can shine these stars on the wall and start to see what these constellations look like. So I think that's what makes these really cool, is shining that flashlight through there. Then we can start to see those stars right through here. And what's neat about this little collection of constellations that you've got on your template is that these are stars that are really common for us to see in our skies over Ohio. So this is really, really cool, super low tech. You don't have to worry about charging it up or anything like that. And once you have some fun doing this and start learning about some stars, one of the things that you can do is you can find some apps that will work on an iPad or a phone. So you'll notice right here, this has a picture of a bear and a constellation. So I can start to move all around in this app, and it's really cool that I can look around and find different constellations. Now, one of the things that I really like about some of these apps that work on phones and iPads is this one will actually point at the stars for you. So when you're outside, you can hit a little button and it will point to those things straight in the sky. So as you move your phone or your iPad around, you can see those things right up in the sky. It makes it super easy to find things. And a lot of apps will do something cool too. Remember, we talked about our night vision. So now if I turn on the night vision mode of this app, look at that. It makes the screen all red. So that way I don't goof up my night vision while I'm outside looking at the stars. Super, super cool. So once you start doing some more practicing with your astronomy, with your star projectors, you can start to find some cool apps that maybe work on a phone or an iPad. You can take those outside and look at those things. So I always have fun going out and doing astronomy things in the evening. It's always a lot of fun. Super easy to do. You don't need anything. You can just run outside, sit back, look up at the stars, and start to find all those constellations. I bet you probably already know some constellations that are up there. So I hope you really enjoyed this little project. I had fun working on it with you, and I would like to see some of the things that you have made. So once you've worked on this project, if you take some pictures of them, or maybe pictures of you outside checking out the stars, send me those pictures. So here's my email address. A lot of you from school know how to get a hold of me. My email address is bnewell@us.edu, and I'd love to see those pictures. So once we have those pictures, then I'll be sure to share them with everybody that's out there. So I hope you enjoyed this little project. I hope everybody's doing well at home, staying healthy and safe, and having fun with your families right now. And we will come up with some more projects like this that we can start to do together. And I hope you all had fun, and I hope you all have a good weekend. And we'll see you soon. Bye.